This story is multi layered. It's a series of very, very, very unfortunate events. There is something exceedingly disturbing about what I'm about to tell you. But you should be. You should be very worried. It's a combination of what happened and what could come. Henry was a privileged little boy who grew up as the only child. And as a result, his mom coddled him to a point where it altered who Henry was. It made him a really spoilt, disrespectful, ill-mannered, and socially awkward child. She spoiled him against his father's wishes. He said many times, "Stop coddling the child, stop coddling the child, stop." But she didn't listen. Her behavior, her reaction, her way with Henry was her way of expressing her love for him and making him feel like whatever happens, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm your mommy. I love you. I'm always going to be here for you. Henry knew that. But because of his bad behavior, unfortunately, Henry only had one friend. He only had one friend by the name of Graham. Graham knew Henry to be a show-off, to be disrespectful, to be aloof, to be aggressive at times, never violent, but very, very socially awkward. Nobody wanted to be around Henry. And to be very honest, at times neither did Graham. But the truth of the matter is they both had something in common, which was this desire to fit in and to belong. And so Graham put up with Henry. Henry was the type of person who thrived on seeing people and making them feel uncomfortable. One particular day, his mom had told her husband and Henry the night before that I'm running all these errands tomorrow and I'm also going to get my hair done, something she was looking forward to doing. And so tomorrow I'll be out of the house at X time. I'm going to make breakfast. You'll find the breakfast in the kitchen if you guys are not awake at that time, but I'm going to leave. And they understood. The following morning, unfortunately, she woke up a little late. And as soon as she got up, she was running around the house trying to figure out, get dressed, figure herself out, dress, do what she needed to do, and find the keys. Where are the keys? Where are these car keys? She could not find those car keys. She looked and she looked and she looked and she looked and she looked. There was nothing. She said to Henry, "Please help mommy, I can't find the car keys." And he said, "No, they're somewhere there. You left them there yesterday." And he continued to sit and watch TV. And she said, "I know I left them there, but I can't find them." She continued to look and look and look. Eventually, time was running. And she realized that she was going to miss not only half of the appointments, but she wouldn't be able to make those errands that she had planned on doing. So, of course, she had to leave the house and take a cab. But, because of the inconvenience of it all, there was no way she could do everything she set out to do. The whole time she was looking and stressing and half sweating and getting very frustrated, Henry was sitting on those keys. He was sitting on those keys the whole time, and he knew it. This was Henry at 14 years old. Months and months after that incident, something happened to Henry that changed the course of his life forever. Something that he would never forget. One really beautiful afternoon, his mom walked into the kitchen kind of gently and kind of figuring out, how am I going to do this? This is going to break my child's heart. How am I going to do this? Eventually, she approached Henry and she said, "Henry, mommy needs to talk to you about something." And he said, "What?" while eating his sandwich. And she said, "Henry, Graham has passed away." And he looked very confused. And she said, "Henry, Graham did something that was a mistake. He has killed himself. And I don't know what else to say to you. Graham is no longer." Now that news devastated Henry. It floored him. He was so devastated because his one and only friend was no longer. Who was he going to spend time with? Who was he going to laugh with? Who was he going to have all these memories with? But above and beyond being devastated, he was angry. He was very angry with Graham. How could Graham do this to him? How could he do it? How selfish could he be to off himself, knowing very well that he was Henry's only friend? How selfish could he be, knowing very well that Henry needed somebody to go to the store with it, somebody to play with, somebody to talk to, somebody to use as a mask, to kind of stand behind, because nobody else wanted to be his friend. And that really intimidated him. It pained him, but he couldn't show anybody else that. He wanted to feel and make people think he was above them, that he felt he was above them. And Graham was his mask, so to speak. And so after his mom told him that news, he kind of just sat there. He sat there, he stared at her. He didn't know what to say. He was in pain, and she could see it. She could tell her son was devastating, but there was nothing he could say or do. And so after that incident, his life was really never the same. He never made friends again. He never fit in anywhere. And best to believe, everybody who he had mistreated when Graham was around was not there to comfort him or to say, you can come hang out with us. Absolutely not. They saw Henry for who he was and how he treated them, especially when he had Graham to hide behind. So at this point in his life, his only relief and release is gaming. Henry, again, is a recluse. He is an introvert. He doesn't have much going for himself, other than the fact that he has a mother who absolutely adores him and a father who thinks he's too spoiled. And so he spends a lot of his time gaming. And the more he does it, the more he gets good at it. Not only does he get good at it, the more he kind of gets high off of it. The fact of the matter is, he's very good at it. He dominates, and it builds this level of self-esteem, this power, this strength, this feeling of being invincible, this feeling of knowing that he had this control. He absolutely loved gaming. And the more and more he played it, the more he realized that there was nothing challenging about it. He was just so good at it that it wasn't challenging him anymore. And so quietly and secretively, he started exploring the world of social media. Now, yes, some may argue he was of age, being around the age of 14. But the truth is, he wasn't concerned about what his parents thought. He never was. His concern was, what would everybody else think? In fact, what do I think of myself being on social media? He, once again, felt he was above everybody. He just didn't relate to people. He didn't look at them and see his equals. And so while he was disgusted by the thought of reducing himself to everybody else, he needed the comfort. He needed the companionship. He needed to feel like he belonged. His friend was gone. And so he quietly started moving around social media. He quietly started getting and slowly started getting his feet wet. Now, the first app he decided, or platform he decided to explore, was OnlyFans. And not for the reason you think. No, Henry was not interested in the naked woman and the pornographic content and the explicit nature of it all. Whatever. He didn't care for that. He was interested in the level of control he knew he would have over these women. He knew that the only thing he needed was money in order to control and to manipulate. And so he made sure he saved, and he got loads of it to play the sick and savage game he played. He opened a profile and he shopped around. He came across a profile by the name of Lisa Lou. Lisa Lou was the perfect victim. She didn't have too many followers that would make things complicated and awkward, but she most certainly looked like she had a life of her own and really had something to lose. And so he very quickly subscribed to her channel. Very quickly. And it didn't hurt that she was a beautiful girl. And the more they got to speaking, the more he paid. He very quickly became one of her favorite subscribers. He would ask her to do this and she would do it, and he would pay her handsomely, and it continued and continued. And the more she did, the more he paid. The more he paid, the more she did. And it kept on going and going and going. And Henry was accumulating all sorts of content, graphic content of Lisa Lou. And he loved it. He knew that he could tell her, do this, and she would do it at the drop of a dime. And he continued to manipulate and to command and to demand. And she adhered to everything she needed to catch those coins. And they did it for a while. But again, Henry wasn't turned on by this. He wasn't into what she was sending him. In fact, when she would send him content, his mind would go to, oh, what I could do with this content, as opposed to, oh, what I'm going to do with this content. There was something deeply sick about him. And so he continued to gather that content. One day, unknown to Lisa Lou and her poor father, Henry decided, well, while I'm getting this content and while I'm getting to see every part of Lisa, I might as well go and find out more about her. And so he did. He hopped online and he started looking for her. Lisa Lou, Lisa Lou, Lisa Lou. He went everywhere. He went on all the other social media platforms. He was on Instagram, he was on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and voila, he found her. On Facebook, after searching and searching and searching, he found her private profile. Through going through her profile, Henry very quickly learned that Lisa Lou was a lover of strawberry sorbet. She was allergic to wheat. She particularly loved Pilates. She was very, very, very close to her dad. She loved arts. She occasionally went to a cafe with some of her girlfriends and they would all enjoy a particular drink that they all became obsessed with. He learned all of that just from her Facebook page. And the more content she sent him, the more he saved it, he kept it, he screen munched it, he recorded his screen, he kept it, he kept on doing what he needed to do. And he eventually found her father's profile. Now, the dad was a factory worker. He was leaving work one day when he saw a notification on his phone, a notification that said he had received a message. And instead of going ahead and opening the message, he figured, you know what, when I'm on the bus and it's quiet, I can get to all my messages. Right now, let me pack up, let me leave. And so he did. He said goodbye to some of his colleagues and walked with the others to the bus, which he would take back to where he lived. As he got onto the bus, as he was sitting there, he remembered, oh, wow, I just got a message. What if it's from Lisa? That's their way. That is one of the ways they communicated. And he loved that about his daughter. He loved the fact that she taught him how to communicate using different platforms and different networks. He loved it. He loved being that father who got to connect with his daughter in different ways. And so he immediately took out his phone and he went into his Facebook and went into the messenger. And he saw a name that he was not very familiar with. And so he clicked on the message. And as soon as he clicked on the message was his daughter's everything not in his DM. He was shocked. He was absolutely shocked. Initially, he didn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. He didn't understand what he was looking at. There's no ways his precious Lisa Lou was doing any of this. He couldn't believe it. And so he kept on looking at it and trying to figure out what's going on. What is this about? Until he soon realized that actually somebody had just sent this to him. As he's sitting there and his heart is beating fast, he's feeling panic, shame, guilt, disappointment and anger. One of his colleagues comes and sits down next to him and says to him, I have something to tell you. And in shock, he just looks at his colleague and he says, somebody has just messaged me some pictures of Lisa. And he says, no. And the guy nods his head. And before he can even say who, when, what, how, he looks up and he realizes two of his other colleagues are staring at him. It is abundantly clear they too have received the same messages, pictures, videos that he had received. And he immediately stands up and he grabs his stuff and he runs to the front of the bus and he asks the bus driver to stop. He'll get off there. And his colleagues don't say anything. They know this is a shameful thing. They know they would be ashamed. They know the generation in which they grew up. And this is a big deal. This is a mess. This is a problem. And so they let him go. They don't want to shame him or, upset him any more than he is. And they let him go. Eventually, he gets to where he's going and he sits down to absorb everything he has seen and he's read and just completely wrap his mind around the fact that my colleagues have seen this too. My colleagues have seen this too. My goodness, what a mess. Now, Henry, of course, didn't see any of this going down. Henry, of course, didn't see the shame and the frustration and the pain he had caused not only Lisa Lou's dad, but Lisa Lou. The only thing he got to see, the only proof and evidence of what he did was the fact that Lisa closed her Facebook page. Not too long after, so did her dad. And then, of course, her profile was no longer on OnlyFans. Next victim, Angela. Angela, aka Angel Eyes. She had a very senior position at a PR firm. She knew she had a lot to lose, but even more to gain. She needed the money. She wanted those extra coins. Yes, she was getting paid, but not the type of money she was looking for, not to fund the type of lifestyle she was looking to have. And so she opened this profile thinking she could keep it a secret. And she did for a very, very long time. Nobody suspected or thought or would even go as far as looking for anything related to dear old Angela. They would have never imagined or pictured this woman, somebody who had a senior position at a PR firm, would get involved in any of this. And of course, he knew, judging from the way she looked, the hair, the nails, that she was a well-groomed woman. And of course, her going to hotels every time she wanted to shoot content was also an indication to him of she is doing this outside of her real life. This woman is living two different lives. This was all he needed to know. And now he was even more determined to find out, who are you, Angela? Who are you, Angel Eyes? Of course, he didn't know her name to be Angela. So who are you, Angel Eyes? Who are your family relatives? Who are your, or members rather? Where do you work? What is your life about? And he looked, but of course, not knowing or having this AKA, of course, he didn't have much to go on. Until one faithful day when she switched her location up and happened to be shooting at what he guesses her home. And in the bathroom, there was a mirror. And this mirror was reflecting a lot of what was behind her. And one of the things that was behind her was a mug. And on that mug was a logo and writing. Was this her company? Well, he decided, I'm going to look into it. And so he did. He got onto his laptop and started bashing away at the keyboards and started aggressively looking. And there it was. He found the company that she worked for. And he read and was very quickly shown to people, team members who worked at this company, the team. And there was his Angel Eyes, Angela. There was Angela. Wow. Hello, Angela. And so not only did he have all this content, private content that he had paid Angela for, he now knew where she worked. He now knew that she had a very senior position at a PR company. He now understood that she was living two different lives because there was probably no ways they would allow her to be doing what she was doing while holding such a senior position. But also, hello. She was clearly living two different lives by the hotel content all the time. He had exactly what he needed. He knew who Angela's boss was. He knew her colleagues. He knew where exactly their office was. He knew their email addresses, and he took full advantage of that. Days later, not only were Angela's colleagues and boss emailed pictures and dirty footage, so were some of her clients. And of course, Henry wasn't there to see any of this. He wasn't there to see not a damn thing. And so he waited to see, how will I be able to tell that what I needed or what I wanted for to happen has happened? And sure enough, a month after that, Angela's profile was no longer on the company page. Next victim, Tenjiwe. She was a social media influencer. She had more followers than Lisa Lou and Angel. Angel Eyes, Angela. He was intrigued. He wanted to get to know her. He wanted to get to know her physically. He wanted to disturb her life. And so he set out. Of course, Thenjiwe's family didn't know a thing. They never suspected their daughter was involved in such trying not to offend anybody. They never knew their daughter was involved in such scandalous behavior. Such scandalous behavior. And of course she was going to keep it a secret. Why would she tell her parents? Why would she let her mom know? Her aunts? Do you know her aunts? Her aunts were some of the most opinionated, loud-mouthed women you could ever meet. And she knew that about them. And so she allowed them to continue to believe that the money she was getting was from her influencer work. She came up with all sorts of excuses. She came up with brands when she needed to. She came up with emails when she needed to. She did all sorts of things. Occasionally had bottles of champagne sent to the house so it looked like she was doing promo. She did everything she could to support this lie, to cover her tracks, to make it look legit. And she succeeded for a very long time. Now, of course, she was participating in very scandalous behavior, but the truth is she was also taking care of her mother, taking care of her siblings. They knew that she was the breadwinner. She was making that coin. And so here came Henry, paying and paying and paying and paying and paying. And there was Thenjiwe catching those coins and coins and coins and coins and coins. Oh, she caught them. She caught them well. She didn't skip a beat. Now it was time for Thenjiwe and her mom to go back to Eswatini, where Thenjiwe's mother was from, to visit her family. And so they all made their way there. And of course, not knowing anything, not suspecting a thing, Thenjiwe went along thinking, well, this is an amazing time to reconnect with my cousins, to visit Ukoko, who's there, and my aunts as well. And so she went along with her mother. And when she arrived, the atmosphere felt very awkward. It felt somewhat somber. It felt very cold and also very distant. But she took it as maybe something has happened. Maybe there's been a death in the family. Maybe the politics, you know, grown-ups, politics. Maybe there's something to explain this away. She never thought in a million years any of this had anything to do with what she was up to, what she was doing. And so she went in there thinking, everything's okay. I'm okay. And her aunts called her to a room. And she went in there thinking, get to speak with my aunts, get to have a little catch up. And of course, when she walked in the room and she sat down, they started to confront her with the information. They started to confront her with everything they had seen. They were not willing to tell her how they saw, who told them, how. They just let her know, we know. We know everything. We've seen. We have seen everything. Again, of course, Henry wasn't there to see any of it. He wasn't there to see his careless and sick, savage behavior and the consequences of it. No, he just needed some sort of signal to show that something had happened, something not too pleasant. And he waited and waited and waited. And all he got was a post out of Thenjiwe on her profile talking about, I'm so sick and tired of people trolling me. I'm so sick and tired of you stalkers. Leave me alone. And so that was somewhat of an indication that, yeah, okay, I did what I needed to do. Message received. Her family definitely know what she did. He was thriving off it. He was high off the fact that he was controlling these women. He was destroying them. He was isolating them the way he was isolated them. He was causing this effect that was devastating. It caused them to be very lonely, the same way he was very lonely. Guys, I don't even know how to begin to tell you how much confidence this was giving Henry. He felt good about what he was doing. His confidence grew. It grew the way that Super Mario Bro grew when he made contact with the mushroom. Yeah. Sidebar. That was one of Henry's favorite games. It grew and it grew and it grew, and he felt more like these characters in these games he continued to play. Now he was looking for something a little bit different. He was used to the high he got off destroying women's lives via OnlyFans. And quite frankly, he was sick of seeing naked bodies. He was over it. He had done what he needed to do. He had proved that he could isolate and destroy the way he wanted to. And so now he was looking for something new, something different. And so there he found himself stumbling upon a dating app. And of course, Henry couldn't help himself. He could not help himself. He immediately started thinking of the many things he could do while on this dating app. Now, in his real life, things were falling apart. He's now around the age of 18, and things are not looking good. Things are not looking good at all. His mother and his father cannot stop fighting, and a lot of the fights are around Henry. Again, the father did not approve of the way the mother spoiled and coddled him. And the biggest problem that the father was having with Henry's mother was the fact that she had somehow convinced Henry that he should not go away for university. He must stay at home and go and take classes. She didn't want him away from her. Henry's mother had picked up that he had a very socially, not just awkward, but socially detachedness about him. And she didn't trust her son amongst other people. She just didn't, and she couldn't explain why. Again, he wasn't a violent person, so there was no grounds to actually go to somebody and say, be scared of my son. Well, so she thought. She just thought, I don't want him with other people because they just won't understand him. And this was one of Henry's dad's biggest problems. You have coddled this boy to his own ruins. You have made him a problem man. Not even child, man, and I'm tired. Eventually, Henry's dad walks out. He walks out and he does not look back. And of course, when the dad walks out, it leaves Henry's mom beyond devastated. She cries and she cries and she cries. And now Henry is furious with the dad. Furious, absolutely furious. But he's also very angry with the mom. How could she be this weak to allow somebody to control her emotions to this point where she feels destroyed, she feels broken, she feels like she can't go on because this person is gone? That to him was very unacceptable. That to Henry was disgusting. It was weak. It was pathetic. The dad walks out, the mom is alone. And now Henry has to figure out, how am I going to project this? Of course, that wasn't his thought process. His was, I need more control. I need more influence. I need my ego to be stroked. I need something. I'm missing something. I'm missing something I get when I'm controlling and destroying on social media. And so yes, he took to this dating page and he found a lovely, lovely, lovely young lady by the name of Sandra. He found Sandra. She was so beautiful, so innocent looking. She was shy. She was an introvert. She was a very reserved kind of person, very respectful, kind, understanding, patient. And her and Henry really hit it off. Now, of course, she wasn't hitting it off with Henry. She didn't know who he was at all. He was catfishing, and even his personality was not who he was. It was not a reflection of the true Henry. He had created this persona built on taking bits and pieces from some of his favorite characters. And so he took and he built this person that Sandra absolutely fell for. And the more they spoke, weeks turned into months. And Sandra was absolutely smitten with him. Smitten. A day couldn't go by where she couldn't and wouldn't text him. She needed to speak to him. She wanted to speak to him. And eventually they come up with this plan, Henry's idea, of course, that let's meet. I want to meet you. I'm falling for you. And Sandra felt the same way. She wasn't going to question a thing. She wanted to meet her manses. And so Henry suggested, let's go to this restaurant. And Sandra gets ready, and she does. She gets there and she selects a table not too far from the window of the hotel where you could see of the restaurant where you could see people walking past. She wanted to sit there so that she could see Henry coming. She didn't know who he was. All she knew is that he would be wearing a blue cap. And she wanted to see him coming first. She wanted to see him before he could see her. And so she sat there and she ordered herself a cup of tea. 10 minutes turned into 30 minutes. 30 minutes turned into 40. She picked up the phone and she called Henry. And there was no answer. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? 40 minutes turned into 50, which turned into an hour. She sat there, looking at her clock, looking at her phone, texting. Many a time she called. Henry was there all along. Henry was sitting in that restaurant, sitting at a table not too far from hers, watching her the whole time, knowing he never planned to come there in that blue cap. He never came there to meet her. He came there to watch her. And so she's there, she's calling him, she's texting him, and the whole time she's calling, his phone is reflecting on the table. It's just flashing and flashing and flashing. And of course, he doesn't answer it. An hour turns into an hour and 15 minutes, and then into an hour and 30 minutes. At this point, Sandra is fighting back tears. She is fighting back tears. It's occurred to her that she's been stood up. She's in disbelief. She's hurt. She's embarrassed. She's shocked. She's fighting back those tears. And of course, all Henry does is watch her and watch her and watch her and watch her. And the more he watches her, the more disgusted he becomes at her weakness, at this pathetic woman fighting back tears because a man has stood her up. He watched her and watched her and watched her. Eventually, she got up and she left. And that was the last time Henry ever responded to her messages. He knew in that moment he had broken her. He knew. And when he left that restaurant, he walked home with this pride that he had managed to control, to win this person over and to control them to the point where they sat in a restaurant for almost 2 hours, wondering and fighting back tears. Oh my goodness. He felt invincible. He knew who he was. He knew the control he had. From all of those victims on OnlyFans to now this dating site. Come on. Come on. Henry was every bit of the man he always thought he wanted to be. He was in control. Henry was in control. He was the person of influence. He was the person in power. Henry was in control.